Hello.
Yo, how's it going?
How goes it?
Great. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I heard some exciting news today.
What?
In the year 2020, they're going to relaunch Promise Keepers in Dallas.
Better have my manhood book out by then.
I know, seriously. They might invite you to speak, maybe.
As long as they don't look at anything else about me.
It'd be amazing though. I guess they're trying to get 20,000 people to come to the relaunch.
I mean,
That's
they
the
can pay
plan.
me to come.
Yeah. Well, if they pay you to come and you sold 10,000 books, that'd be great.
That's ambitious. 5,000 would be great.
You sold 5,000 books in a day, though, is the
Yeah,
thing.
that'd be amazing.
Yeah. And you would be undermining their thing at the same time.
Boom.
Deal. Book it.
All right.
I was so nervous when I started reading Daniel's chapter. I was like, oh no.
Why?
Because it said death to short-term missions. I was like, shoot, I did that for a long time. But then it was great. I was like, oh, this is all the stuff we were trying to do when we did short-term missions. I was real
Kathy.
nervous.
Yeah,
though.
I'm here. I don't know.
Hi, Kathy.
I don't know why my video isn't working.
It
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy.
How are you, Matt? Long time no see.
I know, it's been a while, huh? I'm doing all right.
Good.
How are you doing?
I'm fab.
Are you still dehydrated next to the
Hello.
I am.
Hey.
Hey.
What's happening?
Hey,
Can y'all hear me?
hey.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Great.
Do we need to change the?
You got the
I
professional
know. Look at his
setup.
setup.
Hey, man. I'm just trying to make it.
Jeez.
Trying to make it.
I have my little Apple headphones, earbuds in my ear. Yeah.
It's my Enneagram 4. I have to, be the special one. So.
Oh, you're so special, Dan.
Thank you. That makes me feel comforted now.
Oh man. That's
Cool.
awesome.
All right.
I will record. Like I said, so JR, I'll record this, and then what I'll do is mix this down and send the audio to you. I'll try to get to it tonight, but I'm going to record on 2 channels and I'll split it and just send you my voice.
Cool.
So it'll at least match up.
Perfect. Yeah, Aaron,
then,
our producer, will be so happy. He usually just has to work guest audio off of the general recording.
oh yeah. Well, I recently found out about this trick here, so I've been using it for a lot of my Skype calls. Tried to come out. They've come out a little bit better.
Nice.
The other thing I was going to say, for whatever reason, I thought 5, around 6, the fam. I was told them I was going to be doing Christmas decorations with them. So
Cool.
just FYI, we can hit the ground running. We get as much in as we can.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So we'll have already done a bio for you and talked about your book and everything. So we'll dive in. We'll do the what fascinates you question. And then we'll do a little bit of intro of like hip hop theology, your work in general, and then head straight into the book.
Perfect.
All right, cool.
All right. I'm recording on my end. 24-bit wave.
I am recording.
I'm recording as well.
Oh, man.
All right.
You guys are on it like a bonnet. Oh, let me turn my video off.
Yeah, let's do a quick sync for Aaron.
Yep.
Aaron, we are syncing in 3,
3,
2,
2,
1.
1.
Fascinating.
Fascinating.
Matt.
What?
Little delay there.
What? No. Oh, okay. I'm on apartment Wi-Fi, and it's super sketchy. Because there's like 90 people using it, I think.
Oh, blame
right.
the apartment. Okay.
Here we go.
I do. I blame it.
I'm with it, man. Either way, I'm with it. You'll probably hear my dog in the background at some point. So just
Yes.
It's practically
Did,
traditional for us to have a dog on each podcast.
Dan, did you ever locate the beep?
You know what? I think it just ran out. It stopped. I think the
Nice.
batteries
Okay.
just ran out. So I never located it, man. It's all of season 2. All of season 2.
It's amazing. I love it. All right. Here we go. Our guest today is Dr. Daniel White Hodge. Dan, welcome back to the podcast.
Man, thanks for having me back. This is a treat. This is going to be awesome.
I think the last time you were on was Luke Cage season 1, so we're way overdue to have you back.
That's right. That's right. I remember that.
So because we have rebranded since then and added Kathy as one of our co-hosts, we have a new question.
All right.
What fascinates you just in general in life? What are you fascinated by?
Man, the cosmos, man. I am heavily into astrophysics and astronomy and astrobiology. I can't get enough of it. So that is right now what's keeping my attention when I'm not dealing with the crazies in undergraduate grading.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I love hearing your posts about your students, or I love reading them on
Oh
Facebook.
my. They're hilarious.
Do your students like reading those?
You know what, man? I make sure. So I'm really careful with what I post on Facebook. That, I mean, if you see it, because I got you on a certain list and stuff. So I make sure that that students. Well, I should say most students, alumni, some of the alumni can see it. In fact, you see a couple of them like, man, I'm glad I never took you because you'd be roasting me. I'm like, I ain't gonna roast. I just come out with the best ones. I mean, like, this is just the stuff. I can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna roast you if you don't say anything dumb.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic. So Dan, for folks who are not familiar with your work, you're a hip hop theologian.
Okay, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about. I mean, you have multiple works out that discuss the intersection between hip hop and theology, and I think for people, I think for a lot of people, I mean, we get this in general. Just anytime we try to do anything that's like popular culture and theology, people kind of scratch their heads a little bit. So, can you just give us kind of the elevator pitch for why you call it hip hop theology?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, it was looking at a specific cultural phenomena, which is that of hip hop. And as one would look at, for example, film and theology, I wanted to, really start to see, well, what does hip hop have to offer? What does it bring? What does it materialize? How do folks involved in the hip hop community understand God? How do they understand salvation processes, liturgy, prayer? And so that's partly of what I've been trying to unpack for the last 18 years. And my dissertation focused around Tupac Amaru Shakur. So really looking at him as somebody would look at as a theologian. Like if somebody were to go look at Barth or Spurgeon or any of those cats, I was like, well, let me look at Tupac like that. And so I looked at his whole life, and obviously, after his death in '96, and just really took it in as both a theologian and also like what's called a missiologist, somebody who is looking at the gospel in a way that, okay, we're gonna take this and contextualize it and really begin to point folks towards God. That's Missio Dei. So it's looking at some of those unique corners and spaces that are often overlooked.
So, Dan, in your latest book, Homeland Insecurity, it's all about the church in the wild. So can you tell our listeners, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that term, wild and church in the wild?
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's a good question. Actually, the original title was No Church in the Wild, based off of Kanye and Jay-Z's song. And for me, it was looking, that song was such a a profound sociotheological statement, capturing the elements, I think, of not just Christianity, but of religion in general, particularly those religions that say, we're going to go out and evangelize, or we're going to go out and present a word. And so, Jay-Z starts out, what is a God to a non-believer, right? And so I wanted to see that. I mean, what is, we're at this apex, right, in Christianity. I wanted to find out what is what is that then? What does God then look like to those in the wild? And so I really define the wild as not necessarily those who are just lost and just crazy haired and you know how we tend to think of wild people, but really the wild is there's really, and I don't want to use too much evangelical language here, like, oh, the unchurched, but I would say those who have really that have really grown up around Christianity, but are really to the point now where they're just like, you know what, I really can't deal with church. I really can't deal with, you know, all the dogmatic practices. I can't deal with, you know, the amount of racism. And so I'm cool with God. I'm just not cool with church. So that was really the starting point. And really this book, I was actually about 160 pages in to this book. And then the 2016 election happened. And I completely scrapped every single last one of those pages because I was like, man, this is crap.
Really?
You know,
Wow.
Absolutely, man. I looked at it and read it. I was like, this is just crap. This isn't really who I am. And after the 2016 election, that completely changed the way I approach theology, hermeneutics, or theology. I mean, all of that stuff. And so I was like, I need to reflect that in my writing. And so I really wrote from the heart. And so I rewrote it and rewrote, you know, the whole text, started right over and just started, you know, with that. So that's kind of the sort of the genesis around that. And so really trying to look at what does a church look like beyond what we've been told it should look like. And I'm kind of playing with that. And then the last thing I'll say this, because I know we got to move on to the next question, is that one of the things I say up front of the book is that this is not a book with answers. I am sounding the alarm. And I really thank my editor, Al Shu, and prior to that was David Congdon. And he was let go, and IVP and the Purge and all that stuff like that, but that's for another conversation. You take it over to Profane Faith. But my point is that they were really open to that, because when I wrote The Soul of Hip Hop, I really was already starting to hint to that. But when the editors got a hold of it, it was like, oh no, we got to end on something, you know, something that people can take home. And I just like, no, we're not in that place right now. We're not in a place where people can take anything home. It's messed up right now. So that's essentially what the book is. So if you want a depressing book, that's this book.
Oh man, I didn't read it that way. I mean, I didn't. Okay, I will say this. I was telling JR before the call, like when I picked up the book today to like read the chapter we're going to talk about today. Excellent. And I saw it was the chapter on short-term missions, and I felt this sudden fear because I saw the first part was like kill short-term missions, death to short-term missions. I was like, oh my gosh, I've done that for so many years. And I was so nervous. But I love what you have to say. And I thought it was so insightful, so good, and actually really practical in a variety of ways. But I do want to ask you this. Okay, so in Homeland Security, it's really a work about dismantling white supremacist mission practices, which makes, oh gosh, as a white person, I can just say, I know a lot of white people super, super nervous when we just bring that term out.
Right.
I hope some of our listeners are kind of used to it now. We've talked about it a lot. But I thought the story you shared in chapter 6 that kind of revealed the underlying supremacy issues was really helpful. Could you share that story with us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean this story, I'm starting to see more and more of it. I mean, it's essentially a story of folks who had worked in the, you know, what we would now define as city centered. Back in the day, you know, we named it urban, you know, that term has become so vague and opaque that it's, you know, it's hard to define like exactly what that is. But for lack of a better word, it was like this urban space. And so he had, you know, experienced folks coming over from the suburban area of his environment, you know, trying to do missions and outreach and all that good stuff. And he's like, you know, he had really built up some really great kids and leaders, you know, from the community. And, you know, his friend's church was already like, you know, starting to kind of decline, and people were post-evangelical and pushing away. So he was just like, well, hey, well, you know, what if we come out to you guys this summer and, you know, we hang out with you guys, you know, return the favor and all that good stuff. And he said, man, it just went over horrible. And the guy was offended. He was like, man, you know, like, well, we don't need no help over here. I mean, so it's like this notion that, you know, we really don't trust an ethnic minority enough to really give them the keys to the kingdom, right? It's like in the NFL, right? We really don't trust black quarterbacks enough or black head coaches enough. So we really don't, we'll keep you at the runner, we'll keep you as a grunt. But when it comes to these high leadership positions, these really need to be run by somebody, we don't ever say it by white, but but somebody who, has the experience, or somebody who has the degree, or somebody who has the pedigree. And so for me, that is dismantling that and deconstructing that. And so I've been hearing more and more stories, about that, like folks in the suburbs, and well, especially here in Chicago. I mean, the suburbs are changing. I mean, the inner city is becoming more affluent and stuff. And so it's going to be interesting in the next decade to see what that looks like. But point being is that somebody like Willow Creek is not going to look at Phil Jackson in Lawndale and be like, hey, we love a mission trip from your kids to come on out to, Barrington and minister to us. It's just not going to happen. Mainly because it's looked at as like, we got to come help you.
Right.
I had a similar, I was talking to some inner city pastors who were people of color, and they were telling me that this large white suburban megachurch had felt God calling them to come to the inner city and to minister. And they did this big thing. They raised all this money. They turned their church attention toward it. God has called us. There's no one reaching these people. And they never once called any local pastors from the inner city. None of them.
Right.
Just kind of walked into the community and tried to do things, which I think showed really that invisibility, right? Like,
yes.
Not only are there, it's dismissive to the point of not even seeing that there are people already ministering in that context.
Exactly.
Right. Or that it's even possible, right? That it doesn't even cross their minds that people in the city already know Jesus. What?
Right.
Well, and I think at one of the overarching themes of your book, and even I think using the term "the wild," right, which has all kinds of white supremacist baggage. Mm-hmm. I mean, non-white people, as colonialism swept across the globe, were considered wild, as opposed to civilized.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was this, assumption made by missionaries that only civilized people have access to God, and it's our job to take God into the wild because God is not there. God is with us. Even thinking about like the classic White Man's Burden by Rudyard Kipling, right? And I think that was one of the things that was really challenging in a good way when you were talking about in that particular chapter, dismantling the idea of short-term missions was really challenging that assumption that Kathy just said, right? That God's not already there at work, that people don't already have a relationship with God, and that somehow we're coming in a parental way or in a superior way, right?
Yeah.
Coming in and fixing. I keep saying we because I'm a white guy in the suburbs, so I 100% resonated with what you were talking about, the philosophies of missions that you were talking about. That's what I've been steeped in and raised in my whole life. So.
Yes. Well, and I think, when we start thinking about, right, what the Missio Dei looks like and what this calling of, the God looks like within the context of the Trump era, that brings with it all kinds and loads of baggage with it when you think about, folks ministering, quote unquote, to other folks. And I think this is part of what folks have kind of been leaning towards. I truly believe we are at a place now in history, particularly here in the West, with how are we going to define the next 30 years? How are we going to define the next 40 years, particularly of Christianity and what that looks like? And I really do believe we have to come to a thought and process of how that connects people's humanity. And I think for a long time it's been, we're going to go to them. And I know I was dipped and dyed in that. I was raised in an evangelical diet. And so, and in that language. And so, it's jarring, right, at times to not think about, beyond our traditional forms of quote unquote evangelism, to think about the Great Commission as something different other than what it is. It's reimagining that. And that's a difficult thing for a lot of folks to do, because there's multi-million dollars wrapped up in short-term mission projects, right? There are folks who keep saying, oh, these people need to go and hear the word of God. But it's just like, well, even beyond that, what then does that mean? Because then it means, that it usually means you have to come with a certain level of cultural disarmament, really. I mean, to come to Christianity the way it is now, evangelicalism, you have to really give up who you are in order to be that. And that's just that this generation, particularly those under the age of 25, and like, man, screw that. I'm not.
Could you talk about that? Because in the first part of the book, which we kind of just blew right past, you actually do an ethnographic study with some of these kids who are on the quote unquote the receiving end of the short-term missions.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about what you meant when you said, like, we have to give up who we are to come to Christianity? Like, again, I think people who have always been on the suburban side of it it's hard for them to understand that. It's like me, I was raised in church my whole life.
Yeah.
Right? So I was never in the wild. So like, I don't know, could you share a couple of examples of what that means?
Sure. I mean, I think, when we think about, for example, even the way Black women wear their hair, there are certain understandings, right? It's like, particularly when white inner city evangelical organizations, prescribe a certain formula for how hair should be worn. That right there in and of itself is colonialism. It's like how we think, how to talk and how to engage. Now, there's one thing if, like, hey, I'm coming to you for help and saying, okay, look, I need some help with that. But most white folks who come into the hood, they haven't done any cultural assessment, and it's like Twist and Mark Charles and all of them used to say, it's like, if you have no idea what your own culture is and you were just going to bring your own branded Christianity into that environment, thinking that that's supposed to work and that's supposed to be the thing. And so particularly young people have to then change in order to become that. It's almost like this Simpsons episode where Bart was playing a game at the Flanders' house, and it was a Christian video game, and he had to like shoot everybody with the Bible. And like, as soon as they turned into a Christian, they had coiffed hair and they had a suit and tie and clean shaven and everything. And it's like, even the Black person turned white. So
I would say they were all that Simpsons yellow, right?
Right, exactly. That's Simpsons yellow. So in a comedic way, I mean, that's really where a lot of, these things are at. And so I think, it's going to take an upheaval. I mean, because it's like folks got to do hard work. And I don't know if it's possible for every white person. I really don't. I think it's too much, for particularly white cis males to even look at discouragement, right? We've seen the mass number of mass shooters, white men who their girlfriend pissed them off. And, so it's like a lot of ethnic minorities have already experienced that. So we've got years, decades, centuries of disappointment riding on our shoulders. We just don't, it takes a lot more than that for us to snap. So just seeing that and seeing the pushback, particularly after 2016, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. And so I want to hope. But I'm also very much like Miguel de la Torre, taking up a theology of hopelessness.
So you share, despite your claims that the book has no advice in it, I thought there was a lot of really good advice.
Okay.
Maybe that's just because I'm a white cisgendered male, but I thought there were a lot of really good practical steps for someone like me to begin reimagining with you what evangelism and missions could look like. Can you throw out a couple of those? We wouldn't have to go through I don't want to read the whole list, but
yeah, I think the first part is, as we've talked a lot about, is just, can white folks learn more about who they are? Can they figure out what their place and connection is, right? But that's a dangerous space because, as Baldwin, as King, as a lot of these, writers and thinkers have warned us, it's like, man, the most dangerous person to ethnic minority, movement forward is that progressive that thinks, oh, I got it. I read it all. I'm good. And I've had to experience several of those as supervisors, right? It's like,
they're the worst.
Exactly. It's like they ride the parking brake on progress. And it's just like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. And it's like, or they'll write in the academy, they'll write one book and people are like, oh, they just totally get it. No, they don't. No, they wrote a book. That's
cited a lot of people.
Right. You know,
not if they plagiarized it. I mean, if they plagiarize, they don't usually cite it.
No,
right.
but that happens a lot with the white women.
Right. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
That's true.
So exactly. Well, I mean, and so that for me, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, sure. I mean, I'm not a person of reconciliation. I mean, I think sure, biblically we can talk about that, but I've reconciled all as much as I'm going to change. I've changed all I can. I can't change anymore. And I think, you know, as I say here on page 179, for white people, it will mean the deconstruction of power, privilege, and access to their whiteness as a resource. And again, that's why I say this may prove to be difficult for some. And it's just like, I just, you know, I can't. Again, I've always had the power. I don't know what it looks like to not have power. I mean, just think about when the first of anything shows up to an all-white organization. When I first showed up to the school I'm at now, you know, there was an African-American provost. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. But the pressure that brother was under, meaning in about 2-3 years, he was out for that very reason. I'm done. I am done. You know, take me off. I'm burnt. You know, I'll talk about create room for listening among those who are different in age. You know, I hope we get that. Attention is big. I think in evangelicalism, people want quick answers. You know, one of the things we did in our church recently was, you know, go through race, and we just put it out there like, you're going to be uncomfortable, right? And people don't like that uncomfortableness. They want the answer. Well, what can we do next? What can, you know, what can I read and what can I do? And it's like, no, sit in the uncomfortableness. Because as a black man, I have to sit in that uncomfortableness pretty much every day. And I'm sure, I would imagine Kathy would have to. I can't speak for her, but I imagine Kathy has some of those experiences as well.
Yeah.
So I have to be uncomfortable.
I feel fine, you guys.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks.
I'm just saying.
I'm so glad you feel fine. You feel fine.
You. I
well,
feel so
you know, and Dan, I really appreciate you saying that, because I think, you know, putting the onus on white people to do the work is so important, and to also recognize that that is the privilege, right? And that's the culture that says, I just want the quick answers. I want to get it right. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to be called a racist. Right. And so please, can you tell me how to avoid that?
Exactly.
And then you also tie it in with money.
Yes.
How does money play into all of this and missions? Because, you know, it's about Jesus.
That's right. That's right. I mean, money is the religion and the God that we all pay attention to. All of us. I mean, me included. I mean, it's like just having this conversation with my wife today. It's like, man, I feel beholden to a job, you know, to pay mortgage and to pay for my daughter's horse lessons and all that crap. So it's like we're beholden to money. And, you know, people pay attention, at least, especially in this day and age, you know, with money. Oh, we're losing money. You know, the Dow goes down and oh, we're losing money. And so most of the money that is tied up in most churches comes from conservative white circles. And so there are certain, you know, worldviews and thoughts that come with that, right? I'm going to pull my funding. I'm not going to support this anymore, you know, and then they always layer it under, oh, you guys are straying away from the biblical truth. And it's like, oh, come on, for real, the biblical truth. Okay. You speak Aramaic, right? All right, that's great. Thanks. So it's part of money is at the heart of all of this, right? It's like, you know, the reason Christian schools want kids to go to chapel, it's because somebody's giving money for that brand new chapel. And they're like, oh, I just want students to experience the same God that I had back in the day. Like, can we ensure that that's going to happen if I give you $10 million? You know, and like, well, of course. We'll just make them fools just go to, you know, chapel and stuff, man. So it's connected to that. I mean, it's, you know, particularly for men, we just want to pee on more things. We want our name on stuff. We want that legacy. We want that kind of phallocentric, you know, connectiveness to buildings and stuff. I mean, you go anywhere on campus, it's named after some dude, and maybe his wife is next to him. That's all money. That's money. And so, and hey, look, I'm just as culpable as well. Look, I work for a nonprofit evangelical organization. I'm not, you know, naive enough to not think that some, you know, while we deny LGBTQ folks on one end, we will welcome Trump donors, you know? So all I'm saying is that money is key, man. And I wish we didn't have it. You know, I wish, like Tupac said, you know, rich people could live like poor people and poor people could live like rich people, and we could switch every week. You know what I'm saying? But we don't, right? And you know, And it's shown, right? Tests have shown, studies have shown that, you know, people, for example, who play Monopoly, and once they start winning, you go for the throat. I mean, and that's kind of where we're at. And that exists well into the church as well. I mean, so money is, it's there. It's there.
Hey, Dan, can I ask you about, like, there's a recent example that's been really actually controversial in some ways. And it's not in the US, right? But it's still missions. And there's still, I think, a lot of these problematic theological constructs we're talking about are central in the question of John Chau, the missionary young man who went to a unreached, I guess is the term we could use, but it's this tribe off the coast of India that has been completely isolated from kind of the modern world. Obviously, they're modern in the sense that they do inhabit this world, but they're not in contact with the rest of us. Yeah. And, you know, he went there and, he was killed. And that's created some uproar, you know, people on the one side saying it's colonialism. He got what he deserved, even some people saying. And then on the flip side, people saying he's a martyr and maybe this will be the thing that brings these people to Christ and he did the right thing and I would have done it too, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like what are your thoughts on John Chau and that whole situation?
Man, I'm glad you brought that up. I was just talking about this just yesterday. I mean, all right. Let me start off by saying, you know, I'm sad the brother's dead. I mean, you know, no one should have to go through that. I mean, that's not something I wish upon anybody. I really don't. I mean, that's not, you know, none of that stuff is good. I do think that as I unpack this, and I try to unpack a little bit of this the other day in my own podcast, and, you know, looking at some of his background and whatnot, you know, having, you know, he went to Oral Roberts University, which is, you know, historically been a traditional, very conservative evangelical institution. So I can only imagine that, you know, we've been dipped and dyed in that understanding that, oh, I'm just going to go out there and, you know, I'm just going to do whatever it takes. And, you know, then we see these movies about people who went out there and they got killed and, oh, they died for God and everything. And I'm sure, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. I ain't, you know, like the Holy Spirit, and I wasn't there. I don't know what happened when they, in their last final moments. But my point being is that what brand of Christianity is being brought? And for any example, we can just go to Sierra Leone, and they even reject their own African theologians in place of European ones. Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Your own context. Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, the same thing. They refuse to engage with their own theological prowess and will reject it as heresy, demonic, right? In place of European people. That is colonialism at the highest level. And I got major problems with that and stuff. And so I just think, I mean, these
Dan,
folks.
can you? I'm not sure I followed that last bit. Are you saying people in the church are rejecting native theologians in those contexts?
Yeah,
okay, got it.
Yeah, Christian folk. Yeah, no, thanks for the clarification. Yes, folks in Christian communities, and so, you know, they have been brought a theology that has been very conservative, very Western, you know, and it's like we always talk about. It's been a white Jesus. I mean, here in the States, when what's his name, creator of the Boondocks,
Yep, that guy. I know who you're talking
about. Aaron something, is that right?
Yes, you can splice that in here and Aaron Magruder. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
When he first came out with the character Black Jesus, I mean, it started around the mid 2000s. It was like a YouTube sensation. I mean, it was rough, rugged, and raw. I mean, it was Jesus like going in. But for me and a lot of other young people, man, it was like that. That's the real Jesus right there. This is I can relate to this Jesus. And so that personification of whiteness, you know, within theological, it's like I talk about in the book, racism is in the theological DNA. You know, it's like picking up a MacArthur, you know, commentary and stuff, man. It's like that stuff's embedded in there, yo. And so for me, I'm just like, are we able to actually look at the vast expanse of Christianity, the diversity within it? And most places are not. They're going to bring, you know, that traditional 3-point message, sermon, and that's problematic. And I think the folks on that island, I don't know what contact they've had. They've obviously made a decision to not engage in Western society, and I'm all for that. I mean, part of me feels like I wish I wasn't as colonized as I, because it's taken a lot of time, a lot of therapy, a lot of money to undo just even a little bit of that strand of colonization, in my own thinking. I don't know what it's like to be uncolonized with that and stuff. And again, I just want to reiterate, I don't agree with, with him being killed and whatever. Although I will say, from what I've read and what I've engaged with, it sounds like there were a lot of warning signs. He kind of snuck his way in there.
He knew what the risks were, which also, gets blended into the story in so many problematic ways, right?
Yes.
So you go, even though you know what the risk is for Jesus. And I think that's where it gets very messy and very complicated. And also, he's a dude, and he's at the very least biracial. I read somewhere that he's multiracial, and so there's all of that, and the fact that he was at Oral Roberts, right, as a mixed race person.
Oh man,
right. I was thinking about that too. Like, that wasn't even allowed, at one point, and yet here we are. And I agree with you, Dan, that this is not something you celebrate and go, yeah, he deserved it. That's not that at all. But I am just so, this is just so complicated. And I do think that it requires some time to talk about and take apart the theology and the belief and the beliefs around what compelled this young man to do what he did, and why we, or certain circles of the royal we, lift that up as an example of giving everything up for Jesus.
Yes.
Because I'm not sure, again, I don't want to read into his intentions and all this stuff, but I am worried that that continues to be the example that we give to young people about what it means to, quote, evangelize, and to give everything up for Jesus.
And that's for anything. If I blame anyone, honestly, I blame his professors and teachers who trained him, because you're not allowed to be your ethnicity. It's going back to what we were originally talking about. You're not allowed to be who you are. When I first approached Fuller and going into the MA, their intercultural study, communication, whatever, they were like, oh, well, you have to have at least 3 years of, cross-cultural ministry. I was like, yeah, I'm a black man living in America.
Right. Exactly.
I got a lifetime of that, and I had to actually petition that. And I talk about that in the book. There's a footnote in there somewhere, but it's like, it wasn't viewed as, oh, well, that's not why. Have you been to Malaysia? Have you been? It's like, Negro, I've been in the US of A. Like, this is the wilderness of North America.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. You weren't allowed. So you have to deny that part of you. I know when I was with Young Life, I had to deny my blackness. I had to deny, what that existed. And I would hear from the pulpit, from other black folk. Oh, I'm a Christian first. But what does that even mean? Because it's like, before I came out the womb a certain color. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I was called a nigga before I was called a child of God. So we have to begin to kind of understand, that those things, those identities and cultural identities, those things run deep. And to ignore them, I mean, that is just, again, it's placating itself, right into, the whiteness. You have to, sit underneath this in order to become that.
Right. And would we see, and would evangelicalism even look at John Chau as a child of God, had he not lived and done and made the final decision to go on that boat and approach that island the way he did and write the letter that he did? The story would totally have been different had he chosen something else to die for.
Right.
And be told as this story of a ridiculous, confused, whatever, ungodly person. So
yes, no,
lots of thoughts.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right, Kathy. I mean, and I think, I was a part of the Academic Guild, the American Society of Missiologists, for years, Association of Professors of Missiology. And I finally, I'm just done. I'm just done. I'm not going to go. We keep talking about the same thing. And Kathy, you were there for one of the youth ministry, you know, one that we did on race, you know, and Kathy got bombarded. It's like, but you know, we can check it off the thing. We talked about race. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. And, you know, and it's like they keep talking about it and just, and again, no disrespect to anybody. This isn't an ageist comment as much as I'm saying, I see nothing but gray hair, you know, and aging people in the room, which tells me there's not many people who are being built into, and there's even less people of color that are being built into. And every time I try to bring stuff up, it just comes back to this control. And it also goes back to an imperialism mindset, right? It's like, I'm going to go plant this flag, right? On the moon. I'm going to go to South Asia and I'm going to plant this flag. I'm going to Hawaii. This is captured in the name of God, but that's still imperialism. I mean, that's still coming from. So I don't see Jesus just doing that. In the scriptures, I really don't. If anything, he's disrupting and deconstructing a lot of different things, and his harshest words were to religious people. So I don't know. I'm concerned because people will see that and they won't see the bigger, broader message. It'll just be like, oh, well, he died for God, and they'll probably make a movie out of it. You know? Oh
yeah, I'm sure there will be, and it will be horrible.
Yes,
it will be horrible because if there's nothing that white evangelicalism doesn't excel at, it certainly excels at bad pop culture and the imitation of, right? It's just, it's bad. Yeah.
We're running out of time, but I really would like to close on this. I feel like we could Dan, we'll just have you back on for like 7 more episodes if that's okay.
Yeah, man, let's do this. Man.
I do real quick. We're gonna plug it in at the end, but if this conversation has wetted your whistle, Dan's podcast is basically all this all the time. So go check out. I mean, do yourself a favor and listen to Profane Faith if you're not already listening to it.
Thank you.
He goes in deep on all this stuff all the time. But I wanted to close this question. I'd be really interested in all 4 of us having a chance to respond to this. And I think it really sort of is reflected on, to me at least, what felt like what was at the core of your book, Dan, and it's this question.
Yeah.
So we all hopefully probably most of us familiar with the Great Commission. That's at the end of Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus tells his followers, "Go into all the world and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." So what does faithfulness to the Great Commission look like, or what could it look like without the assumptions and practices of colonialism baked into it?
I think when we look at that scripture, I think for me, as I've looked at it, it's like, you know, when translated, looking at nations translated, we get ethnos, or we get ethnicity, you know, and as you go, the process, the journey, it's like, I think it's relooking and re-examining that and deconstructing it and saying, have we actually done that? Or have we gone and said, here's some information? You know, I mean, it's like when I was teaching in a non-Christian university, I was teaching religious studies at Cal State Northridge, and you know, the student was just like, "Look, anything I need to know about religion, I can just get on my phone. I don't need to go to church, right?" And so, but that's been the image of Christianity, right? It's like, can we walk with people? I talk about this in the book, you know, lifelong relationships, you know, and for white folks, it's just like, who's on your emergency call list for your kid, if you have kids and are married, at school? Is it an ethnic minority? Who do you turn to when you have some issues of concern within race? I mean, so my wife broke this down the other day, who is white, and it was just like, you know, if there's no other ethnic minorities in your life, if no one's ever mentored you, no one ever walked with, then all these concepts are just going to be theory. And we can retweet it, we can like it, we can repost it, but it's never going to get past that. And so the next time that you're a boss and a supervisor over somebody like Kathy or myself, it'll just be the same reiteration of whiteness and stuff until you actually get in and start to do the work. I think we have to do that internal work before we even begin to think about the Great Commission. I mean, you wouldn't want to send a doctor out by just taking a weekend class on, you know, biology and chemistry. I wouldn't want that person working on me. Of course not. We're going to put that fool through 12 years of schooling and residency. You know, we're going to make sure this cat knows the difference between your esophagus and, you know, your buttocks and stuff. And so, you know, we need that because at the end of the day, we have a lot of untrained and unqualified folks that are out there trying to run around talking about, I'm a minister and agent of the gospel. When, dude, you have a zealousness. That's great. You have a heart. That's awesome. Can't teach that. but do you actually have the skills, the intercultural skills to engage in the Great Commission, in the Missio Dei, this mission of God, of us engaging with folks and having deep conversations about who God is. And that for me is really where I'm at as I look at the Great Commission.
Everything Dan just said.
I guess my only bit of final thought, I want to play off something Dan said there at the end, because I cannot tell you how often I hear it. If I had a nickel for every time I heard it, I would fund all of our mission projects.
There we go.
Don't worry about money anymore. That idea that all we need is passion.
Oh, gosh.
And God will take care of the rest. Right. This is not just in mission work.
Yes.
But it's in, there's this idea, right? And it's never made sense to me, because like I loved playing baseball, but I was not willing to put in the time it took to develop the skills to play well, past like, I don't know, 10 years old or whatever, you know? So yeah, I'm not a professional baseball player. No one would ever pay me money to play baseball, right? Because it doesn't matter how much I love it. I haven't put in the work. Dan's analogy, right? It doesn't matter how much you genuinely want people to be well. If you haven't put in the work to learn how a human body works and how it breaks down and how it can be healed, you're not going to be a doctor. And frankly, you actually oftentimes, if human history is any indication, can do more harm than good when you're trying with the best of intentions to help. And it just boggles my mind that we think faith is somehow different. I wonder if it's maybe not a sin to know our calling from God and to pursue that calling without being willing to put in the work to learn the skills to make us more effective. Now, does that mean that God doesn't ever work in our failure? No, of course God does, but that shouldn't give us license to sin and to fail, right? I mean, to quote Paul, right? Do we sin so that grace may abound? No. I think the fact that God is great and merciful and gracious does not excuse our slothfulness when it comes to loving and living into our calling. And I mean, I think in the midst of that, Kathy, I think it was you said earlier, like we have to be willing to fail anyway, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But if I'm going to fail, if I'm going to accidentally or even with the best of intentions, still be centered in my whiteness in a way that's going to be hurtful, at least I want to make sure that I'm learning from that and I'm being educated in that and I'm doing everything that I can to decolonize my own mind and my own spirit, so that I don't keep making the same mistake over and over and over and keep perpetuating these really harmful and damaging systems.
I think though where the complication happens, and I know we want to wrap up, but
I'll come with
when it comes to missions, right, and the Great Commission, and we are told, yes, it's all about passion and God will open doors. When we use that language and we don't recognize where white supremacy and the access to money, the access to resources, and the ability to write the narrative for success from the get-go, there will never be failure, right? I think that's why John Chau's story is so interesting, is because it's happening in modern day with technology and Twitter. So that didn't happen back when, Jim Elliot. You know, that there wasn't the critique right in the moment live when the news broke. And I think that's what's happening with John Chau's story, is that white evangelicalism cannot run the narrative the way it did, because that narrative would be that this was successful. And we just have to wait, because eventually, you know, those wild people there on the island, they're going to come to know Jesus and they're going to thank John's professors and family. But the way white supremacy and evangelicalism works right now is that there never has to be failure, because those missions teams from those suburban churches, they will always get to go, because there's always going to be money. And there will always be cute pictures of the white kids with the black kids and the brown kids and the poor kids. And even though we don't know what the long-term effects are, that's not important because we can always make it look successful.
We can quote that verse out of context that the word of God never returns void.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Kathy, I think that's so insightful. And I think one of the really important points here is that this was a failed mission, not because John Chow died, but because he didn't have to die. It's so many things were done wrong and done poorly. And because of our complicit, terrible theology, partly. And I think one of the things, as far as the Great Commission and removing colonialism, I think one of the big things is, from my point of view, we can't go alone anymore. Right. Like the whole idea of going as one person or even a team that's all one ethnicity, one nationality, one culture, there's no need for that anymore. There are churches all over the world and in all sorts of cultures, and the teams do better in reflecting the reality of who Christ is if they're being forced to deal internally on the team with the fact that maybe my precise picture and my precise culture is not the perfect reflection of Jesus, and you're figuring those things out together. And that's true, not, culture of how much money you have plays into that, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we need more diverse cooperations of trying to share the gospel with people. It shouldn't be a single church, a single organization, a single type of person involved in mission anymore. I don't see a need for it, and I think it's dangerous the way we do it now. Sometimes do it now.
There you go.
All right. Well, we are out of time. Dan, thank you so much. Your book is so helpful. I'll just say on a personal level, our church is trying to figure out missions right now. We're a pretty young church, and we've never done missions in any kind of formal way, and we're trying to figure it out. And your book is such a helpful guide as we even think through what the right questions to be asking are. So honestly, anyone who's in church leadership, I think you would benefit from reading Dan's book. If you're passionate about missions or evangelism, I think you'd benefit from Dan's book. Again, it's called Homeland Insecurity, a hip-hop missiology for the post-civil rights context. It's just really, really great. Can you tell folks, if they want to follow along with you online, where some of the main places you hang out are?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's a one-stop shop. You can go to whitehodge.com. And you get links to my Instagram, Facebook, podcast, Twitter. I'm probably too much on Twitter, but spend a little too many days and get in the weeds, as Broderick Greer talks about it, and there in the weeds. So, but yeah, whitehodge.com, and there's some select essays. There's links to all my books. Everything's there. Whitehodge.com, and there's a link there if you want to bring a brother out to speak and pay him a few dollars.
Yes.
Which you should.
More than a few.
Yeah, more than a few. Right, exactly.
That's fantastic. Well, we'll put all the links there in the show notes at thefascinatingpodcast.com. And again, his podcast is Profane Faith, which is just fantastic. So Dan, I know you got to run, but would you be willing to join us in one final segment called What's Fascinating Us This Week?
Okay, sure.
Excellent. So this is we're just going to go around and share one thing that we've been really excited about or into or fascinated by this week. Would you like to go first, since I know you got to go?
Oh, yeah, sure, man. The Mars rover landing,
yes.
Finding some shiny stuff on there. I'm just like, oh, all right. I have some theories about Mars. So it's going to be interesting to see what NASA gives us.
Will they tell us when they find the aliens?
Exactly. So yeah, that's been piquing my interest this week.
They will not tell us. Come on.
Wait, You mean they did not tell us?
They did not tell us. Yes, correct. Correct.
That's exactly
Matt,
right.
what are you into?
Long-time listeners know I love The Good Place. I've been putting off watching season 3 because my kids said they wanted to watch it together, and then we didn't. So last night the kids finally broke down and said,
they watched it ahead of you?
No, Zoe texts me and is like, we were supposed to watch it over Thanksgiving and we didn't when we're all together.
Oh,
and so then she called, and then Allie's like, well, if you want to watch it, Dad and I'll watch. So I watched the first 3 episodes last night. It's so amazing. It's still my favorite TV show. I love it. So funny. So yeah, Good Place season 3. I'm enjoying it. How much I've seen so far.
Oh, nice.
It comes back from a break this Thursday night, and I'm just champing at the bit.
So good.
I'm really trying to figure out what I am doing wrong in life that I cannot watch much TV.
You're busy being a world traveler, rich and famous author.
Oh, yes. Very rich, very famous. But I have finally started watching, I'm very late to the show, Jane the Virgin.
Yes.
I finally started watching it, and I love it. I love it.
It's so good. How far are you?
It is. I'm just finishing season 1. I am so late to the story. I love the interaction between the grandmother and the mom and Jane, and how it's in English and in Spanish. And it makes me feel like I'm at home. So,
yeah, we love
except for the
show.
whole, being the virgin who's pregnant thing. I didn't have that. Yeah.
That's
anyway.
Funny.
Yeah.
I actually have to run. My wife is texting me from the other room.
Oh, yes.
But
okay.
Get out of
thank
here.
you for having me on, y'all. And I hate to cut out so
No,
quick.
it's all right. We were about
man.
finished anyway. Thank you, Dan, so much.
It was so great, Dan. Thank you.
No, thank you guys for having me on. This is great. Please let me know when it airs, and I will promote it as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Talk to you soon.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dan.
Peace.
All right. Well, I'm into it. I got to do a super advanced sneak screening of a movie
Ooh.
that's coming out at the end of this week. If you're hearing this episode when it airs, it's coming out on Friday. So it's an animated film called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
You saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse already?
Yes.
You're the worst, dude. How did you do that?
You're so special.
So Alamo Drafthouse Theater chain, their rewards program, if you're in the top level, which means you probably see too many movies there, they do a Christmas party every year, holiday party every year for their top brass. And usually they do a super advanced screening of whatever new Star Wars movie is. But this year there is no new Star Wars movie at Christmas. And so they did Into the Spider-Verse.
Nice.
And man, it's definitely in the top 3 Spider-Man movies. It might be my favorite Spider-Man movie. I have to see it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny. It's about for those who don't know, Marvel has had a couple of different timelines up until recently, and in one of the timelines, Peter Parker dies, and there's a new Spider-Man named Miles Morales, who's half African American, half Hispanic, who also gets bitten by a spider and becomes Spider-Man. He has a slightly different power set. So this movie actually follows him, and the whole idea behind it is that spider people from a bunch of different multiverses get sucked into his, and they all have to work together to save the world. So it's Peter Parker, it's Spider Gwen, who's Gwen Stacy gets bit by a spider instead of Peter Parker. It's Spider Ham, Peter Porker, the incredible Spider Ham, who is a pig who has spider. It's very silly.
Yes.
There's a Spider-Man Noir he's in black and white, and he was Spider-Man in the 30s, who's voiced by Nick Cage.
Oh no!
And there's an ongoing gag in the movie that he can only see in black and white, and they play that to hilarity. But part of the reason the movie's so great, I mean, one, it's written by Phil Lord, who's half of Lord Miller, who were behind 21 and 22 Jump Street and the Lego Movie and all that. So that the script is just fantastic, but the animation is amazing. They incorporate it in ways that feel comic booky, but in a way that makes the movie feel really kinetic and fun and fast. And I just had a huge smile on my face the whole time I was watching it. It was a super fun movie. So,
I'm excited.
It was really, really good. I can't wait till more people see it so we can talk about it some more. My wife Amanda went basically because she loves me and didn't really care about this movie, but she was actually pleasantly surprised what a good time she had. I mean, she likes, superhero movies, okay, but was not particularly invested in Miles Morales, and it was great. So,
very cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm into this week.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
So that's going to wrap up our episode. What are y'all working on right now?
So I've got a Christmas story that I've just released for free. It's a little early for those of you who celebrate JR style, but those of you who celebrate Kathy style will enjoy it.
Which is like the rest of the world, JR.
Right.
Yeah, everyone except for the entire church across time and throughout history. But whatever.
Blah blah blah. It's a Christmas story that takes place in the Sunlit Lands, which is the fantasy world that the Crescent Stone novel takes place in. It stands on its own. You don't have to read the novel to enjoy the story, I hope. But yeah, you can pick that up wherever you pick up ebooks. It's only on ebook. It's not physical copies.
Is it a romance? Please tell me.
I didn't know that all Christmas stories apparently have to be romances. Yeah, it is not, but it's in the like top 100 Christmas stories right now on Amazon. So it's always next to some. I think my favorite one so far is Christmas on Cougar Mountain.
Ew! Oh my gosh!
It's one of
and my favorite clever title was "Marry Me," MERRY.
Oh,
Marry Me.
No.
Matt, can you confirm or deny the existence of a red alien Santa with a 12-pack?
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
I did.
In your story?
Oh, in my story? No.
Yeah.
I can deny it.
Okay, that's categorically you're saying that's not a part of what you're doing here.
No, definitely not. There are unicorns, and camels.
I do have a serious question.
Yeah.
Should people have read the Crescent Stone before they pick this up?
No, there's no spoilers, or only the mildest sort of spoilers where you get to know some of the characters. There's nothing that would give you insight to what happens in the novel.
I just want you to know, Matt, that because it needs some good Amazon reviews, I'm considering reading it before Christmas.
It has someone. Part of the story is, JR, in the Sunlit Lands, time works weird, so they can't really keep track of when Christmas starts there. So all of them kind of have different Christmas traditions, and they set it aside to just do it this one day together.
Is that supposed to make me feel? I don't understand. But
so there are some people that celebrate like you and the rest of the church and whatever in the book.
Okay. That makes me feel good. I've always wanted to inspire one of your characters. So
yes, it's one of the girls.
Kathy, I heard a rumor that you are part of some sort of Advent devotion.
I am. So Alabaster, it is this wonderful company, group of creatives. They've put together what and they have called the Beautiful Bible. It's just, you need to check it out. So alabasterco.com. And these beautiful, they've done the Gospels, Romans, Psalms, and for Advent, they've put together an e-book on Advent. So check that out.
Nice. Well, my Mr. Miracle article that I think I've been talking about for 3 shows now, I think should finally be up by the time this episode airs. It turned into a beast that I had to wrestle into submission. I sent it to Josh Larson, who's the editor over at Think Christian, and he wrote back and he was like, "Whoa, you really tried hard on this. But do you remember your original pitch?" And I was like, "I do not." He was like, "Well, here it is. Why don't you work on it some more?" So I really like what it ended up being. But it's one of those writing projects that ended up being significantly more difficult than I anticipated, partly because that comic is just so fantastic and complicated and rich. So anyway, that should be up over at thinkchristian.com. That's it for this week. I hear Clay will be back from Canada for our next show, which is going to be our season finale to round out the year. It's just going to be the 4 of us. I don't think we've decided what we're going to talk about yet. So if you have any suggestions, let us know at facebook.com/the fascinating podcast or tweet at any of us. Use the hashtag fascinating podcast, and we'll let you know. Stay tuned to hear what we'll be talking about next week. Until then, thanks as always for listening, sharing the podcast, and take care of yourselves out there. Awesome. All right. Quick intro.
Yep. Hold on. Let me get a new file up.
Yeah, I'm working on it too.
Hold on, me too.
Kathy, I just want you to know that ignoring my Jesus juke in the comments is the best way to burn me.
It's always fun, though.
That's what I'm saying. Like, when I wrote that, I was so proud of myself, and then no one commented, and I was like, oh.
Oh, did it make you sad?
It did. Then no one commented. Then no one was like, oh, that's such a clever burn, and you're smart. Yeah.
I didn't notice it. I was too wrapped up in the show, JR.
Okay.
It wasn't because it wasn't good.
Whatever.
It was good.
Dude, I thought Spider-Man came out this weekend. I already told the girls I was going to take him.
Oh.
Not until the 14th, according to my extensive internet research.
Okay. All right. Do we need to sync again?
Probably should.
All right. 3,
2, 1.
Fascinating.
Fascinating. Better.
Am I still lagging real hard?
No.
Okay, good.
Are we good to just do Reader's Choice Awards for our intro topic?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Matt, do you want to start the show since it's been so long since you've been on?
Who are you anyway?
Yeah. We have 2 special guests today. This is actually, Kathy, pretty standard. Matt will just be gone for 2 or 3 weeks and
it's true.
pop back in.
It's unfortunate, but true.
He's our most frequent podcast guest.
It's like our 112th episode, and I've been on like 14.
So that means you're the richest and most famous
No,
world traveling
means
author.
I'm the least able to say no to things.
You know, because he's a 9.
Oh yeah, that I don't even agree.
So Kathy, what I'm basically saying is that in like 4 more episodes, you'll have been on more than Matt.
JR, you know that thing you said the other day about how 9s don't like come at you with stuff they have, but if you come at them, they're like they have something ready?
Yes.
I totally did that the other day. And I was like, oh, I do this all the time because it's not worth bringing up to you. But if you're going to attack me, I should probably just make you aware.
You're like, hold on, let me whip out all of these very specific instances where you
it's not bitter for me. I mean, it could probably be bitter depending on the topic. It's more just like, yeah, but what about... Anyway. Although, sometime when we're not being recorded, we should talk about my feelings about that guy who's been plagiarizing me and then going online to talk about how plagiarism is a sin.
Yes.
What?
Do you not know?
Oh
Okay.
No.
Aaron, this is all off limits. Go, Matt.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my first book, Imaginary Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Kind of deconstructing all of our fake pictures of Jesus, or many of them. So this guy who's pretty conservative, Southern Baptist, I think, right, JR?
I have no idea.
He's on their ethnic or their ethics committee. He writes a book called Original Jesus.
Oh, no.
And in Original Jesus, it's not just that he takes my concept. He goes through and each chapter has a different Jesus that he deconstructs. But he sends me an invitation to like help get the word out about his book with the first 3 chapters. And I start reading through and he's gone through and like taken paragraphs from my book and rewritten them for different things. And then he did stuff like, so I had political Jesus, like the conservative political Jesus and the liberal political Jesus with different issues, right? And neither of them are the real Jesus. He has a whole chapter about left-wing Jesus and how evil he is. So it made me mad. Like basically he disagreed with my book and he's like, well, I should rewrite it and sell it as my own. And that's basically what he did. So, and I sent it to my agent and we talked to the publisher and they're like, well, it's not technically like he didn't word for word steal from you, which I'm not actually sure is true because I haven't read the whole book. Because as JR and I were discussing, it'd probably be corrosive for my soul. But this week, some people who know about it, because I was just talking about plagiarism in general, and some people searched out some of the examples I gave and figured out who it was, which wasn't my intention. But he starts tweeting this week about, somebody read one of my articles as their sermon this week and didn't use my name. And, plagiarism is a sin. You really shouldn't do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would do that. It's really terrible. So I actually texted one of his friends that I'm connected to last night, and I was like, I need your advice. Because it was years ago. I've kind of set it aside mostly. But when stuff like that happens, I'm like, that's not good for him or me or like all these people who think that he's helping them forward in ethical concerns.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Oh, man.
That guy's the worst. Maybe not the worst.
I think that you're underestimating the ability for guys like that to, in their own mind, feel not at all like they've done anything wrong.
Oh, I'm certain that's true. Because he actually interviewed me about Imaginary Jesus for Leadership Journal.
Oh, you are kidding.
No, I mean, it's not hard to draw the line. But I think in his head, he's like, oh, Matt's theology is wrong. I should redo this. This is noble.
Better. And this is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
But I mean, on the other hand, the cover of his book is awful. And mine was beautiful. Awesome. So we always have that.
All right. All right, let's do this.
All right, we're back now. You can use all this.
Okay, here we go. Ready? Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fascinating Podcast. I'm Matt Michelatis.
I'm J.R. Forasteros.
And I'm Kathy Kong.
On this week's show, we'll be rethinking our approach to missions and evangelism with professor, podcaster, and author Daniel White Hodge, who we've had on the show before. You loved him before. He's great today. But before we get to that, we need to talk about something very important, and that's the InterVarsity Reader's Choice Awards.
You might remember, if you have been listening to previous shows, that we were asking you to get out and vote because some of your co-hosts had books in the running. And one of our esteemed co-hosts won the honorable mention for it was like the general category, right? What did they call it? Just the main award, right?
The general award.
Well, because they have like the academic. And all
right.
Yeah. So there's just like So congratulations, Kathy, on winning honorable mention for Raise Your Voice.
I voted for her.
Tell us how it feels to be an award winner.
It feels just like it did before.
Kathy, do you get like a seal for your book now or something? They put a sticker on the front?
I don't think so.
Well, we're going to make one for you.
You get bragging rights for sure.
I get bragging rights.
Oh, that's good. That's something.
Yeah.
Also, Dan Hodge, his book, Homeland Insecurity, also won the honorable mention in the IVP academic category. And we're interviewing him about that book today. So that's super exciting.
A bunch of our previous guests won as well, yes?
So Dominic Du Bois Gilliard won for Rethinking Incarceration. He's won straight out. That was the big winner. We've had him on. And then Jose Humphreys, who was on last week, he won in the Praxis category for Seeing Jesus in East Harlem, which was fantastic. And then we had Suzanne Stabile on last season, back when we were the Storymen, for The Path Between Us, and that one won in the Formadio category. So...
and that's why we're so glad that you all join us for InterVarsity's fascinating podcast.
InterVarsity Press. Let's get that straight.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Press. And for future reference, if any listeners are getting ready to publish with IVP, you too may want to be a guest on our podcast.
Let us know.
We've got connections. Oh man, I have to say I was a little bit bitter that you didn't get on the list.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, seriously, when I was looking at all those books on there, it really and truly was an honor just to be nominated. It's great.
That's the right thing to say. We're proud of you.
I mean, I haven't read that other book that won, but
I didn't either.
I'm sure it was great.
I'm sure it was great too. I was like, wow, I have never heard of that book.
I have to say, I'm a little disappointed. I only voted once. And I feel like if I just put on a different jacket or maybe a mustache, I could have gone through and just voted again.
Yeah, or made a bunch of fake email addresses. I mean, it seems like there are lots of ways you could have done it.
So many ways to do it.
No, but seriously, congratulations, Kathy. It was really well deserved.
Thank you.
I'm loving how great your book is doing. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we have a long interview with Dan. It was great, so we want to hop over to it. So, Dan White Hodge is an associate professor of communication at North Park University in Chicago. He also serves as editor-in-chief of the Journal of Hip Hop Studies, and he's the author of books like Heaven Has a Ghetto, The Soul of Hip Hop, and Hip Hop's Hostile Gospel, a post-soul theological exploration. Matt, you got to meet Dan last year at Cruise 17, right? When he and I did that breakout session.
Oh man, yeah, it was super fun. Dan came out with his daughter, and JR came out with Amanda, and we had a meal together with Andy Crouch, and then we did, and then the seminar you guys did was so fun. It was so good, so insightful. And one of the things I love about Dan, for me, is that I feel like the way he says things challenges me to like stop and rethink the way I say things and see things, which is so valuable and a big part of what we're meant to do as the body of Christ, right? So yeah, I think you're really going to love Dan.
And Kathy, in my head, all of you who live in Chicago just get together and hang out all the time. Is that basically
all the time?
That's what I figured.
Yes. No, I have not actually seen Dan in person in a while, but we connected online first and then finally got to meet face to face at, I forget the name of the conference, and they had invited me to say a word about race in youth ministry and youth minister training. And I said, "Are you sure?" And they said, "Oh yeah." And I led with, "This is the whitest, oldest group I have been ever in front of." And the looks on everyone's faces, except for Dan White Hodge. And he was just sitting up there grinning. And I was like, yeah, good thing I can deposit my check online with my phone. So yeah, it was great. I was so glad Dan was there.
Well, yeah, that should give you a good taste of what you're in store for in our interview with Dan. It's fantastic. And we're going to be talking about his book, Homeland Insecurity, which is from IVP Academic, but it's a really good book. And we, even though our interview is long, we still barely scratch the surface of what he does in that book. So I have a feeling by the end of the interview, you're going to want to check out that book as well. So let's hop over to the interview with Dan.